David Goggins' story isn't the kind you'd find in a superhero movie. He was born out of darkness. In Buffalo, Ohio, he opened his eyes to a world of violence inside his own home. From the outside, his family seemed successful. His father ran a nightclub, and their lives appeared glamorous. But behind those disco lights lurked something far more sinister. By the age of 6, David had already become familiar with physical and emotional abuse. His father beat his mother and him regularly, placing unbearable burdens on the shoulders of a small child. Goggins describes the trauma of his childhood as emotional numbness. He had learned not to cry. Tears simply weren't allowed in that house. Over time, he learned not to trust people, to build emotional walls, and to suppress his pain. Survival meant burying his emotions. But buried pain always comes back to collect its due. Eventually, the family decided to escape the darkness. His mother took David and fled the house in the middle of the night. They wanted to start a new life, but old wounds don't heal so easily. Financial hardship, identity crisis, learning disabilities, and relentless racism followed. At school, David was rejected for being black. At home, he battled hunger. In class, he struggled to keep up. He had a learning disorder similar to dyslexia, and teachers labeled him as stupid. That shattered any belief he had in himself. He began to think he was worthless. David's life was slowly spiraling out of control. He got by in school through cheating, lying to hide his true self. He often told his mother, "Everything's fine." But inside, a storm was raging. The scars left by his father weren't just physical. They were etched into his mind. Around this time, his mother remarried. Her new husband became one of the rare lights in David's life. Under his guidance, David found some peace, but that light was short-lived. Tragically, the man died not long after, and once again, Goggins was thrust back into darkness. By the time he reached high school, David's confidence had completely collapsed. He felt the constant need to hide, to be invisible. But one day, something changed. A military man came to his school and sparked a fire in his mind. A man in uniform, disciplined, confident. Everything David was not, but everything he wanted to be. For the first time, a new thought crept into his mind. What if I could become someone entirely different? But transformation doesn't come easy. At that point, Goggins weighed 300 pounds. He could barely breathe and was consumed by self-hatred. He was working as a pest control technician and lying to himself every day in the mirror. Until, one day, he couldn't take it anymore. At rock bottom, he made a decision to change. He calls this turning point the accountability mirror. He stood in front of the mirror and told himself the brutal truth. "You're fat. You're lazy. You're a liar, but you don't have to stay this way." That honesty sparked a revolution within. From that moment, he adopted a new philosophy: become friends with pain. He started waking up at 4 a.m. and running. He ran while crying, puking, collapsing, but still kept going. His body wasn't ready, but he was training his mind. Because Goggins believed most people use only 40% of their potential, he was determined to push for 100%. He started studying. He wanted to become a Navy SEAL, but to do that, he had to pass the tests, lose weight, and complete the physical requirements. And he had only 3 months. For a regular person, it was impossible. For David, it became a war. Every day he ran 10 miles, swam, studied, lived on protein shakes. He didn't sleep, he cried, but he didn't quit. Goggins' message in this chapter is clear. Your past doesn't define you. No matter how dark your childhood was, change is possible. But change is painful. And most people run from that pain. Goggins, however, turned pain into a weapon. He failed his first SEAL application due to a heart condition found during medical testing. But he didn't give up. On his second try, he was accepted. But that was only the beginning. Goggins's real test would begin in SEAL training. One day, while watching footage of Navy SEAL operations on TV, David Goggins felt something shift inside him. The broken child within began to fade, replaced by something else. On screen were men fearlessly walking into darkness, battling through mud with unwavering determination. In that moment, Goggins realized, I want to be one of them. The only problem? He was the exact opposite of what they were. At the time, David was 24 years old and weighed 300 pounds. He could barely walk upstairs, lived on soda and donuts, and worked a dead-end job as a pest control technician. His life was stuck in a cycle of mediocrity, with no future in sight. But that day, he made a decision that would change everything. He didn't just dream it. He grabbed a pen and paper and began to make a plan. Lose 80 pounds, study for the tests, pass the physical exams, even though he couldn't swim. And he had to do it all in just 90 days. That's how long he had until the SEAL training application deadline. For Goggins, this became a mental war. Every day, he told himself the hard truth with brutal honesty. You're weak, you're lazy, you live on excuses. These inner conversations shaped his mindset. His greatest weapon was what he called the accountability mirror. Each morning, he stood in front of that mirror and told himself exactly who he was and what he needed to do to change. He stuck notes to the mirror. Work, run, don't be afraid, push harder today. The first step was weight loss. He trained 3 times a day, running in the morning, swimming at noon, and weight training at night. He stopped eating junk and lived off protein shakes. His body fought back, vomiting, fainting, constant knee pain. But Goggins didn't quit. He knew exactly what he wanted. He didn't just want to become a SEAL. He wanted to completely rewire his mind. After months of grinding, he earned the right to take the SEAL entrance exams. But his first application was denied due to an irregular heart rhythm. It was a condition he never even knew he had. Most people would have lost all motivation at that point. But for Goggins, it wasn't a stop sign, just another obstacle. He addressed the health issue and applied again. This time, he was accepted. A man who had always been alone was now stepping into one of the most brutal military training programs on Earth. When Goggins began SEAL training, he found himself in what could only be described as hell. The full program lasted 6 months, and most candidates dropped out in the first week. The most infamous and punishing part was Hell Week, 5 days with nearly no sleep. Endless cold water swims, crawling through mud, lifting heavy logs, and dealing with instructors who were constantly pushing them to the edge. Goggins went through Hell Week not once, not twice, but 3 times. The first time, he had to drop out due to a medical issue. The second time, he broke his leg, but kept going on that broken leg. And the third time, he completed it. This was the moment he proved not just his physical strength, but his mental resilience. When the body gave out, the mind took over. This is where Goggins's philosophy took shape. Pain unlocks a secret doorway in the mind, one that leads to both peak performance and beautiful silence. During this time, Goggins developed one of his most important mental tools, the 40% rule. According to this rule, most people operate at only 40% of their actual capacity. The moment you think you're done, you've probably only tapped into half of what you're capable of. Goggins pushed himself beyond that point, again and again. When he felt exhausted, he told himself, "Now we're just getting started." When the pain hit, he'd think, "This is where the game begins." So how did he do it? The answer lies in building what he calls mental calluses. Just like your hands grow tougher from constant friction, your mind strengthens from constant hardship. Goggins made it his mission to face difficulty every single day. He didn't choose the easy path. He ran in the rain, walked on aching knees, stayed up all night, but still got up the next morning. Because an easy life, he believed, creates an empty mind, and he wanted a mind that was full and unbreakable. Even after becoming a Navy SEAL, Goggins didn't slow down. While others believed they deserved to relax, he aimed higher. His battleground wasn't just war. It was his own inner world. PTSD, the ghosts of his past, his father's violence. He knew he had to keep pushing even harder to survive mentally. During this time, he started creating new challenges for himself, waking up at 3 a.m. to run 20 miles, followed by hours of study. That became his normal. He had rejected comfort. To Goggins, the most dangerous thing was the numbness that comfort creates. People weaken their spirits by running from pain. Goggins chose to live inside it. He says that during this phase, a dark side was born within him, a part of him that thrived on pain and gave him strength. While most people fight their darkness, Goggins embraced his. Whenever he felt broken, alone, abandoned, or not good enough, he summoned it. That darkness pushed him further. By now, Goggins' journey had become more than just a personal fight. He began to inspire others. Becoming a SEAL was hard, but it wasn't enough. He wanted to prove something to the world. You can do this too, because I was rock bottom, and I rebuilt my mind. Still, the battle within never ended. He continued to have nightmares. He still carried the scars of his past. But the difference now? He no longer feared the fight. He had made peace with his demons. In this chapter of his life, Goggins reminds us over and over, it's not about who you are. It's about what you push through. You don't need to be born gifted. But if you can stand in front of the mirror every day and say, I can do better, then that's where real transformation begins. Goggins' story is a war fought from the inside out, a daily battle of body, soul, and mind won through sheer force of will. For most people, becoming a Navy SEAL would be the peak of achievement. But in David Goggins' mind, there was no such thing as a peak. Becoming a SEAL was just the beginning. Goggins constantly pushed himself into deeper pain and tougher trials, determined to go beyond the limits of the body. For him, true victory came from inner transformation, and the only path to that was when the body quits. But the mind keeps fighting. His first major challenge after becoming a SEAL was ultramarathons. Goggins wanted to raise money for a charity event. That led him to his first race, the San Diego One Day, where participants had to run 100 miles in 24 hours. This would become his new hell. He wasn't prepared. He'd never run that kind of distance before, and his body wasn't built for it. But his mind was somewhere else. By mile 70, his feet were bleeding. There was blood in his urine. His legs were swollen. With every step, his body betrayed him. But Goggins didn't stop. Because to him, this wasn't just a race. It was a stage where every ounce of pain from his past came rushing back. His father's beatings, his mother's tears, the days he was rejected at school, the moments he felt worthless. It all resurfaced, and now he had to face it, step by step. During this race, another door opened in Goggins' mind. Pain is the pathway to power. When he crossed the finish line, he was on the brink of death. But he had done it. He finished 100 miles in under 24 hours. He had accomplished something people believed the human body couldn't. But the real transformation hadn't happened in his body. It had happened in his mind. After that race, ultramarathons became a lifestyle. 100 miles, 135 miles, 200 miles. He ran through deserts, mountains, forests. He walked barefoot on scorching asphalt in 120 degrees heat. Sometimes he ran for 40 hours straight without stopping. With every race, he discovered a new limit, and every time he proved, there are no limits, only mental barriers. During this journey, Goggins pushed himself into the Guinness Book of World Records. In 2013, he broke the world record by doing 4,030 pull-ups in 24 hours. But before that success came 3 failed attempts. In his first try, His hands were torn apart, muscle fibers ripped, and he passed out on the bathroom floor for hours. But he didn't quit, because every failure built another mental callus. One of Goggins's greatest strengths was his relationship with failure. To him, failure wasn't a stop sign. It was an invitation to evolve. Every time he fell, he got back up stronger. As he often says in the book, each time I lost, I actually gained a little more of myself. Behind all of these achievements was a clear philosophy. Destroy your comfort zone. Goggins believed comfort is the greatest enemy of modern humans. Comfort dulls your edge. When you start choosing what feels good, what's easy, what's familiar, you lose your true potential. That's why every morning, Goggins began his day by fighting the voice in his head. If you don't do something hard today, you'll lose everything you gained yesterday. This mindset created a revolution within him. He stopped measuring life by success alone and started counting internal victories. If a day passed without pain, he felt something was missing. Pain had become his compass. Because, in his words, easy days teach you nothing. But the process was brutal. His body was breaking down. His heart would sometimes come close to stopping. His joints were failing. His entire system rebelled. But Goggins believed that the mind walks ahead of the body. My mind defeats my body, he said. At this point in the book, Goggins introduces a key mental technique he calls the mental cookie jar. It's a metaphor for keeping the memories of your hardest victories in a mental jar. When life gets overwhelming, you reach into that jar and pull out a moment where you overcame the impossible. And that memory gives you strength to keep going. For Goggins, this technique was more valuable than any race, because the real war is always inside the mind. In this chapter, Goggins also begins to run not just for himself, but for others. He donates the proceeds from his races to the families of fallen soldiers and veterans. He gives speeches and inspires hundreds. But still, he prefers solitude. He finds more peace running alone in the dark than standing before an applauding crowd, because in that darkness, he's face to face with his true self. There's no praise, no noise, just his footsteps and his inner battle. The most important transformation in Goggins' life came when he stopped seeing himself as a victim and started seeing himself as a warrior. What happened to him as a child wasn't pain anymore. It became education. His father's fists, the isolation in school, the heart condition, the failures, they were all lessons. Because to Goggins, true freedom comes when you stop using your past as an excuse and start using it as a tool. He closes this chapter with a bold reminder. People always talk about my accomplishments, but that's not the point. The truth is, I still wake up every morning with the same darkness, and I beat it again every day. To Goggins, success isn't something you win once. It's a battle you fight anew every single morning. At the end of the book, he directly challenges the reader. He gives tasks. Keep a journal, write down your weaknesses honestly, push your body daily. Because Goggins doesn't want people to just read his story. He wants them to live their own transformation. In his world, knowledge means nothing. Action means everything. David Goggins' life isn't a tale of heroism. It's a story of self-construction. It's the rebirth of a broken child through mental resilience. With every page, it delivers one clear message. Embrace the pain, because the growth found in pain can't be found anywhere else. Stay hard. These two words are the essence of both the book and Goggins's entire philosophy. Stay tough. Don't quit. Reject comfort. Train your mind and fight every single day, because the battle never ends. The battle is you.